Amazing. Okay. Hello, everyone. Kick out my sound. Da, da, da. All right, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Lucy Hunt Bailey, the membership editorial manager here at Dreamers and Doers. So you'll probably see me in your inbox a lot. I'm so excited you're here today for this conversation that feels especially timely, relevant right now, particularly if you've been thinking about how to stay authentic and differentiated in an increasingly AI-driven world. Today, we're joined by the wonderful Jasz Rae Joseph, HubSpot strategist and founder of Jasz Rae Digital, where she helps B2B companies, agencies, and consultancies build smarter, more human marketing systems. With a background in sales enablement, content strategy, and RevOps, Jasz blends data-driven structure with storytelling that really connects, helping brands build marketing systems that are both strategic and deeply human. As AI continues to reshape how content is created and distributed, many brands are starting to feel like they blur together. So in today's session, I'm so excited that Jasz is going to teach us how to integrate AI tools strategically without losing the voice, values, and the human connection that makes a brand truly stand out. So she's going to walk us through practical ways to use AI to increase efficiency and whether you are a marketer, a consultant, or a founder navigating how to evolve your strategy in this wildly evolving age of AI, you'll leave with clear frameworks and ideas that you can apply immediately to build content and messaging. Okay, Jasz, we're thrilled to have you. Go ahead and jump right in.
Yay, thank you. I'm excited to be here. All right, I am gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Oops, I want the other one shared. Too many screens. Mm, let's do it this way. Okay. Perfect. There we go. I want to look at you, not over here. Okay. Super excited to be here. As Lucy teed us up, we're going to talk about AI proofing your sales and marketing. So she gave me a beautiful intro. I will not spend too much time on this, but like she said, I work with B2B companies and consultants and help them develop systems and growth strategies so that they can build a pipeline full of sales ready leads. I do that in three different ways. I have full service sales and marketing growth plans. I do a lot of LinkedIn lead generation and content strategy specifically because I work with B2B companies and LinkedIn is kind of the place to be for them. And then I also do some HubSpot consulting because it's important as you're doing all the sales and marketing work to also have the right systems in place. And I want to just transparently, before we dive in, like share a little bit about my business and how much AI has shifted everything in my world. I'm a marketer at my core. And I started my business 5 years ago, when, people ChatGPT was not really a thing. And a lot of what we did was content marketing. We did a lot of copywriting and social media and things like that. And, my business really got flipped upside down as AI came onto the scene. And I'm sure a lot of you felt the same way. And I really started to feel like, how do I compete with AI? How do I use AI? How do I talk to my clients about AI? And I started to, really realize that like there are some of these key core concepts that were shining through amid all of this like quote unquote AI noise that was happening. And so that's like what really made me excited to create this presentation and share with all of you a little bit about what I'm seeing, what's working in my business, what's working for my clients, and kind of just like what's happening in our world right now. Um, so before we dive in, I like to just share that I am super like conversational in these types of settings. So please, 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 like put in the chat if you have a question or come off mute, share your ideas, share your thoughts. I want this to be more of a conversation than it is a quote unquote presentation. So please don't hesitate to get involved here. Okay. So let's talk about, what is happening in our world right now. I teed it up a little bit, but I like to kick us off with some stats because things are shifting at a rapid pace. And I know that we're all feeling it, but 50% of marketing teams right now create content using AI to complement their efforts in some ways, right? This doesn't mean it's fully AI generated content, but 50% of marketing teams are using it. There's been a 189% surge in AI posts on LinkedIn since ChatGPT launched, which, like I said, I do a lot of LinkedIn work for my clients, and I know we're all seeing this too, right? You're scrolling your feed and you're like, it didn't used to look like this. Like a lot of us feel as though we can kind of spot those AI written posts a mile away, and they don't feel the same. They don't feel as authentic. Um, 43% of marketing teams say that AI is essential to their social media strategy. And like I said, 50% of consumers are saying that they can correctly identify AI generated copy, which is really interesting too. So we're at this crossroads of like everybody's using AI, but is it the best thing to be using? How are we using it strategically? That's kind of like the big question that we're all having is how do we stand out as we navigate this huge shift in marketing right now? And so, I think we've all heard this in one way, shape, or form is like AI is going to replace you. AI is going to take our jobs. And I'm not here to talk about what's going to happen 10, 20, 30 years down the road, but like right now, AI is not replacing you. Like, I want to make that so clear. What's happening is tasks are being replaced. So, repetitive, templatized work is being replaced. So things are getting faster. People are becoming more efficient thanks to AI. But where your competitive edge is in your thinking, your trust, and your judgment. So those are the things, those really human elements are what we want to be doubling down on right now. And I'm going to talk really strategically about how we do that in our sales and marketing process. I'm going to talk about specifically what kind of content formats we should be using, how we should be creating content, both using AI and not using AI. And so we're going to talk about that, but I always like to level set here because I think at least for me and for a lot of my clients, like it's a scary time that we're in right now. But like I said, AI, it cannot replicate these human emotions, trust, lived experience, judgment. One of my mentors, I'm going to kind of steal her phrase, but she always says AI didn't have a childhood. And that's like so true, right? Like we have this competitive edge of being human, and now is the time to double down on that humanity in everything you do from a business lens. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do that. But first, I want to kind of talk about the why behind it and this counter movement. I'm a big believer in all aspects. I know, we're talking about this a lot with what's happening in the world right now, but history repeats itself. And so I want to share two examples that, as I was doing some research for this presentation, really stood out to me. And the first is this rise of the vinyl movement. And so Spotify launched in the US in 2011. And when Spotify launched, music became about convenience, right? Which is very similar to what we're seeing with AI right now. AI is making everything at our fingertips. Everything is so convenient, it's easy to access. But if you look at the stats, at the exact same time that Spotify was launching and gaining popularity, and everybody has Spotify on their phone now, right? We also saw this huge gain in vinyl sales, which is so interesting. So, as Spotify launched and music became about convenience, people started craving the opposite, that counter. They wanted that imperfection, the ritual, the nostalgia, the presence back in their music. And so people started reaching more toward vinyl than they had in years, and we saw the vinyl market just skyrocket. So, the takeaway from this is that when everything becomes convenient, people will actually pay a premium for what feels real, right? Like they could get these songs on Spotify included in their membership, right? Basically free. But they're choosing to reach for that vinyl, to reach for these things that Spotify couldn't give them, that the convenience didn't allow, which I think is just like so interesting. Whenever I was like researching these, I was like, this gives me goosebumps. Like, I love it. Um, Another quick example is the rise of farmers markets in the United States, right? And so back, I'm not going to tell you the dates, but back in the day, right? Everybody used to get food from their local farmers. And then Food, again, became about efficiency, it became about convenience, it became packaged. And as food became mass produced for efficiency, again, we saw this huge shift happen. And people started reaching for farmers markets. And we saw the number of farmers markets in the US skyrocket because people wanted the things that mass produced food couldn't give them. They wanted trust, transparency, they wanted health, they wanted to be a part of their community. And so, again, we see that while efficiency is great and there's a place for it in the market, there is also this counter movement that happens because efficiency built at scale can erode trust that actually drives buying decisions, especially buying decisions, when we think about consulting and, one-to-one service offerings. And we're seeing a really similar shift happening in marketing right now. And whether, you're a marketer and you're privy to this or you've just been passively kind of scrolling your social media feeds, I'm sure that you've seen it, right? Boring feeds, we're calling it, or this messy chic era is taking over. What used to be everything had to be perfectly polished and meeting brand guidelines, we're now seeing this shift where creators and brands and social people on social media are now leaning into this more like messy, this more authentic, this more real look. And again, it's just another example of this counter movement, right? And so the brands that lean into this authenticity and this realness are the ones who will win in the end. And we're going to talk quite a bit today about like how do we lean into that? What does that look like? What are those tactics? But I want to share that we're already seeing this across the board of what's performing really well on, social media in content right now. Any initial thoughts, questions, feedback? Awesome. All right, feel free to pop in the chat if anything comes up for you. Okay. I personally cannot talk about sales without talking about, or cannot talk about marketing without talking about sales because I think they go hand in hand, right? And so I work with a lot of B2B consultants, and what I'm sharing with my clients right now is if you're selling tasks in the way that we did 5 years ago, you're competing with AI tools. So instead of selling tasks, we need to be thinking about how do we sell outcomes? So, and I've even seen this in my own business, right? I used to be able to put together a proposal to say, I'll give you email newsletters, social media posts, reporting dashboards, a content calendar. If you're not a marketing consultant, fill in the blank with what you sell. But instead, we have to pivot and we have to really double down right now on selling outcomes, right? So, what does that mean for people? So, for my clients, that means more revenue in their pipeline. They get to sleep well, knowing that their marketing is handled. They get a strategic plan, they get clarity on what moves the needle. And it's really important to be talking about all of these things in your marketing and in your sales conversations because whether we like it or not, admittedly, like we as consultants are being compared to AI right now, and AI is selling tasks, it's not selling outcome and transformations. Okay. So, what I like to kind of advise here is reframe your work from what I do to what changes because I exist. And I'm going to ask you all, if you feel comfortable, use this prompt at the bottom of the page and fill it out for your business or for your work. So, after working with me, people feel blank. And that right there is your AI proof marketing message. So, before people felt confused about where to start. And now, after working with me, they have clarity. They have a 90-day roadmap. They used to be doing it all themselves. Now they have a system that runs without them. So, what is that transformation that people feel whenever they work with you? So, feel free to put yours in the chat if you want to play around with it, if you want to workshop it together. I would love to kind of see some of them and we can talk about them. But this is really, as we talk about AI proofing your marketing, this is what is going to really support that, is that transformational piece. Okay. Another framework that I want to share with you is this storytelling framework. So there's three parts to it. The first is your experience, a reflection, and then insight. So this is a framework that I recommend that you use. Again, most of my clients are using LinkedIn, they're B2B companies, but this works on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you're kind of messaging to your audience, email marketing, you name it. Wherever you're creating content, wherever you're messaging, if you want to stand out in this kind of sea of AI that we're in right now, of AI written content, this is how to do it. Start with an experience, then talk about what did that teach you? How can you reflect on that experience? What shifted because of that? And then close with why does this matter? Connect it to their world. Um, and so I have kind of a brief example here. I would, of course, straight make this longer, but I didn't want to give you guys a million paragraphs to read in my slide deck. Um, but I could write a post to say AI is changing marketing fast. Focus on being more human, building trust, tools will come and go. That was like very like meh, right? Like AI could have written that. That's not like hitting home. But instead, I want to tell a story. A prospect said to me, I could use AI for this, but I don't trust it the way I don't trust it to think the way that you do. And that stopped me in my tracks, right? And then I'll talk about what does that mean? How do I tie that back to the work that I've done with this client? And that is a much more compelling post. Again, like I said at the beginning, AI doesn't have lived experience. It doesn't have a childhood. It could sure like make this stuff up, but if you can write this or even feed this to an AI tool, right? I'm not opposed to using AI. I'm actually going to talk in on the next slide about how we can use AI to support us, but we have to be feeding it with our experience, our reflections, our insights, because it's that human element that is going to differentiate you right now. Okay. Ariana asked for a product-based business, how would I alter this prompt? Would it be after experiencing my product? Yep, exactly. Or after using my product. Yeah, after experiencing it. Exactly. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So instead of kind of like the specific thing that your product does, right? Instead of like, use my toothbrush, it will make your teeth clean. It's like, use my toothbrush because you will be kissable and everybody will love you. Like it's that, what's that transformation, right? What's that like feeling that they can only have as a human? Amazing. Okay. Like I said, let's talk about how we can use AI for this. So we've all heard this before, garbage in, garbage out. I say this to my clients all the time in terms of like dirty data in their HubSpot and their CRM systems, but this also works with AI. If we're feeding AI garbage, it's going to give you back garbage. But if you feed AI your lived data, you're going to get your voice out. What does that mean, Jazz? How do I feed AI in my life? Here are some examples. So, sales call transcripts. The next time that you are on a sales call, bring in your little AI note taker, Fathom, Otter, whatever you use, and copy and paste that transcript into Claude, ChatGPT, your AI tool of choice, and ask it to pull out what are the pain points that this client told me? What objections? What specific things did they say that I can then use in my marketing messaging? Same thing with discovery or onboarding notes. As you're onboarding a new client, you're bringing them along your journey. Like, how can you take those notes, the things that you're capturing, the things that they're sharing with you? DMs and comments. How are people speaking to you, right? How are they speaking to you in the comments when they're praising your product, when they're talking about your product? Another one is reviews. If you have a product-based business, like how are they talking about your product? What are the things that they're saying? If they're DMing you to tell you about their problems or why they might want to work with you, again, what are those stories that they're telling you? And how can you then take those and turn those into your marketing messaging? Another one is like your emails, your posts, if you have a podcast or you create video content, those transcripts are also amazing. So like as you can see, everything in this left-hand side is like very human oriented. So feed AI all of that like human centric information, and then you can get much better results from your tool. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm a marketing consultant, can you write me a post about why my clients, shouldn't rely on AI? That's not great. But if I give it all of this information ahead of time, now all of a sudden it knows, okay, Jazz's clients are really nervous about AI. Here are the reasons that they're nervous about it, but they're also excited about it. And here's how they're using it. And it has all of this information to go off of. Yeah, you bring the experience, AI helps you scale it. Okay, so now we've talked a lot about what this messaging should be. So, how do we message to these people? We talk about that transformation. We can use AI to help us figure out that transformation. But now I want to talk about specifically the content formats that are working because obviously, AI is a very broad term, but primarily right now, whenever we say AI generated content, it's often text-based, right? It's often ChatGPT or Claude or something like that who's writing a post for you. And as we talked about at the beginning, most of the social media platforms are overloaded right now with that AI written content. So these formats are harder to quote unquote fake. And so that's why they're working way better in this AI saturated world right now. The first one being video. So your face, your voice, your energy, of course, is like the most human thing available to you. So instead of typing out your next post, think about, pulling out your phone, and it doesn't need to be polished. In fact, it's better if it's not polished. We learned that, earlier in this presentation from some of those stats. Just pull out your phone and say it. And it's okay if you stumble a little bit. It's okay if you use some filler words. Like that human element is actually what's going to draw people into you more. Same thing. I'm not going to, harp on all of these, but podcasts. So again, that long form conversation. Of course, we know podcasts we can then splice into smaller videos. Voice notes is another fantastic one. Whenever I'm having conversations in LinkedIn DMs, Instagram DMs, a lot of times I find myself reaching for that voice note instead of typing because, again, it just feels more human, especially when I'm talking to someone who I haven't met yet. We're all bombarded with like all of the spammy cold outreach DMs right now. And this is a beautiful way to stand out and say, I'm a human being. Like, hey, I actually just wanted to like chat with you. Let me tell you what I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. Again, it doesn't have to be polished. And I will tell you, almost every person who I don't know, who I send a voice note to on LinkedIn, they respond to me and go like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you sent a voice note." Or I didn't even know that you could send voice notes on here. Like, "Oh, it's so good to hear your voice." Like people love it. Like it brings them happiness, it brings them joy, it helps you connect. Like it's just such an awesome way to do it. Another one, this is really great. I know we had a question in the chat about product-based businesses. Behind the scenes content is fantastic for this. So I know, depending on your product, it might not make sense for you to be on video, although I do think founder-led content is very important right now. But that behind the scenes content. So kind of those like that those messy moments of like here's what really happened. We were creating this product and oh, we ran into this stumbling block or actually we discovered this alternate use or whatever it is. Like bring people along for that ride, tell the stories and kind of show them those behind the scenes messy moments. And that's what really creates trust. Point of view content. So people are really responding to strong opinions right now. If you have an opinion about your industry that maybe is somewhat against the grain or not the norm, really lead with that. That's working really well right now. And again, it's I feel like a broken record, but it's human, right? It's outside of the box. It's not what you would normally think about. And then of course, real stories, which ties into everything that we've talked about. But I specifically call out here like client wins, failures, lessons. So things that only you would know and only you could write about instead of saying, it's so important for clients to have their HubSpot be clean. Tell a story about we had this client, their HubSpot was had really dirty data in it. It wasn't working for them. We cleaned it up. Here's what happened. Like again, bring them on that journey, bring them on that ride with you. Okay. And then the other thing that is really, really shifting right now is we need to start thinking about our people. Whether that's your followers, whether that is your, true, if you own like a true community or a membership, whether that's your email subscribers, whatever it is, the people that you are marketing to. We want to start building a community, not just an audience. This is another thing that has hugely shifted in the past few years. It used to be enough to have a really big audience who would give you impressions, like your things, sometimes comment. But now we need participation. We need to bring people into our world and interact with them on a deeper level. So, what does that mean, Jazz? Like you're throwing out these terms, audience, community. And this is what I mean when I talk about the difference between an audience and a community. So, an audience has traditionally been measured on metrics and reach, right? If you've been in the marketing world for a long time, you know that these used to kind of be like our Bible. We would live and die by how many people did we reach? How many followers do we have? Now that's really shifting, and we need to start tracking more of how many conversations have we had? How many people are singing our praises and referring us to their friends? Are they actively participating with us? Are they engaging with us? Instead of just speaking at our community, how do we ask them questions and invite them to also participate? Um, and again, like it's that genuine, that human presence. Um, if you don't yet have a community, it's okay to start small, and we all have a community because we're all in dreamers and doers. So, you're already doing something right. You already value community. But these are kind of some examples that I give to my clients. It doesn't need to be this like huge, I have 400 members in my Slack group. Like, it doesn't need to be like that. It can be small. It can be other people's communities. It can be your own community. It can be hosting a private newsletter or a private podcast. It could just be hosting little events, virtual events, or events in your community. Even, like I said, having those conversations in the DMs instead of just posting, actually reaching out to people, or when people reach out to you, sending them that voice memo and starting that conversation and asking them questions and having that kind of two-way dialogue instead of marketing, which has always traditionally been this one-way dialogue. So, AI makes average easier. It makes distinct harder, which is great news for you because you are all beautiful, distinct human beings. So I talked about this a little bit already, but what's working right now? It's that point of view content, it's behind the scenes, it's emotional honesty, it's screenshots, real faces, messy stories. So this is again just kind of doubling down on what I already touched on, but more content formats for you to think about because I don't want to just give you that marketing messaging. I also want to touch on, how exactly do we do this? What does this look like in reality? Um, so our key takeaways here are don't compete with AI, out-human it. So this is kind of my key takeaways, and then I'm going to open up the floor if anybody has questions. I also have a little giveaway. But every tech leap creates a human counter movement. So we talked about this movement with the vinyl surge, with the surge of farmers markets. But I want everyone to walk away with this knowing that people will always pay a premium for what feels real. And so we're not competing with AI. We are a part of this human-centric counter movement. And that's really important to be thinking about, especially as AI continues to grow. Always make sure that you're selling transformation and not deliverables. You can ask yourself what changes because your product or service exists. Lead with that. I know I shared a few different frameworks and prompts for you. I really encourage you to sit with those and, journal on them or, ideate around them, whatever your process is, but use those to figure out what your marketing is going to look like in this new AI filled world that we're in. Of course, use AI, but use it strategically. So put your lived data into AI so that you can make sure that you're getting your voice out. This is not an anti-AI presentation by any means. This is about using it strategically and being able to stand out. And of course, tell stories that only you could tell, because AI doesn't have a childhood. It's your experience, your lens, your judgment, and that's really it helps you stand apart, your competitive edge. And then build a community, not just an audience. So really focus on building those relationships and taking people on this ride with you, being open, being transparent, showing the authenticity, showing those like messy middle moments. Because belonging is what makes a difference, and community is what actually converts those followers into sales. So I shared a ton of stuff. I've put together this little playbook. It's completely free. If you want it, I can pop the link in the chat so everybody can easily access it. But this shares a lot of those prompts because, I can only share so much with us all on the call today, but it's important to me that you're able to walk away and put this into action for your business, for yourself. And so this downloadable has all of those prompts that we talked about today and more. So you can sit with this and you can really think about how you need to tweak your messaging. Because I know all of us own amazing businesses that are going to thrive right now. It's really the small tweaks that are going to get us over the finish line and be that competitive edge, like talking about transformation instead of deliverables. It's little things that can change that can really make a big difference and help us stand out right now. Um, I've also included my email here, so if you're watching the replay and you have questions, you want to chat about things, please, please, please reach out to me. I'm an open book. But yeah, for people on the call, if you have questions, if you want to workshop anything in real time, we have plenty of time. So yeah, feel free.
This was great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Jazz. I thought this was awesome. I think I'm doing a lot of this stuff already, so it felt very aligned to the way that I think about it. Even your
Good.
storytelling framework, I was like, that's like, it felt like you went into my head. That's exactly how I write my emails usually, like when my weekly emails to my audience. So, yeah, I thought this was awesome. So thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And I know you do such a good job too of like building that community. And I think these go hand in hand, right? Of when you're using this messaging framework, that community often just is like drawn to you because you're telling those stories and you're opening yourself up. And so thank you for being a great example of that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Jazz, I actually had a question where I feel like sometimes when I even like the concept of audience versus community can be like really uh overwhelming to
Mhm.
business owners like talking about. It seems like this huge lift. And I wonder if you have some examples of kind of like making that shift or some wins there that are like small and tangible, if not kind of
Mhm.
being like have this whole like other separate platform that you communicate with people on.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I'm glad you're asking it because it's important to me. Like community building does not need to be a part of your business model. It can be a part of kind of your marketing strategy. And it's more of a mindset than anything else. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use a community building platform and truly have a community. It's the way that you approach your marketing and your content and your sales conversations. So for me, a lot of it is about just being curious. And when you're having conversations with people, I tell my clients a lot to think about it as if you're a market researcher, right? Be so curious about your target audience. So if you have people that are reaching out to you in the DMs, that are commenting, that are replying to your emails, whatever it is, or even if you're just meeting people at networking events, be so, so, so curious and ask them a ton of questions because that's going to help kind of bring them into your world and again, have those authentic connections. But it also is going to help you inform your content strategy to speak more to those feelings and those pain points and those really human emotions that we need to be speaking to right now. So yeah, it's really about having conversations more than anything else.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's like like build in public kind of grew and like obviously it said founder led and
Mhm.
that like bringing people along in the journey so they feel like they're invested in it. But without it necessarily having to be like come like meet other people who enjoy this product or service or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know one of my clients is a PR agency and we were having a conversation last week about like they were just saying to me like we need to educate our clients that like not everything is news. Like if you're opening a brewery in Dallas, like and your press release kind of bombed, like that there's a million
Yeah.
breweries opening in Dallas every day. And we talked a lot about this like need to build in public and create a story and why is your brewery different than every other brewery in Dallas? Well, we're a family-owned business, and let me introduce you to my mom, my dad, and my brother, and we're, putting up the bar, and we chose this wood because it's from a local, forest, like whatever. Like you have to tell that story. You have to bring people along for the ride in a way that admittedly you just like didn't have to do 10 years ago. And yeah, our market has shifted quite a bit. And yeah, I think that behind the scenes, like the storytelling, the founder-led content is huge right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, wow. Anybody else have burning desire to, yeah.
I know I like hopped out of the shadow. Thank you so much. This is super, super helpful.
Good.
My question kind of prompted from Lucy's. I think one thing that I am like, as I think about the content strategy, is always like the captions. Like I know you mentioned that founder-led like that founder-led human voice is absolutely important, but I think I find it hard to kind of like balance, okay, like the professionalism because I have a product, I like sell footwear, and then also founder-led, and it's like, okay,
Mhm.
do I, on my personal socials kind of go from the founder led and like collaborate there? Or do I like really just, they should be able to be hearing me as a founder in the caption all the way? Or does it really vary depending on like the post that you post? Yeah, so that's kind of my
Yeah.
question.
It's a great question. I think a lot of it varies depending on the post. I think if you're comfortable, I do see success with, founders having their personal brand and then also having your brand. Your brand, despite it being a product, should always kind of speak like a human, right? Your brand should have a voice, a vibe, all the things. So I think that's really important. And another piece of the puzzle too that I would bring in is that community piece that Lucy was asking about. And that community could be your customers, bringing them in the fold to talk about their experience or videos of them, using the product or why they purchased the product. It could also be, your suppliers or your vendors or whatever makes you special, but pulling in that human element, even if it is a product, like who are those behind the scenes people that can tell their story and that can kind of bring people along for that journey? So it's not all about the product, it's also about the humans that have kind of poured themselves into that product. Is that helpful?
Yes, yes, and it makes a lot of sense. So now I know how to like kind of segment the post. And it can be a mix. I mean, from what I'm hearing, like yes, there's product, but also individuals buy into who's behind it, who's the brand, all the stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know Mandy popped an example in the chat too. I'm not familiar with that one, but maybe, yeah, check it out. That could be some good inspo for you.
Blogalotties. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like the connection there. Mandy, if you want to jump in at all, because I know the brand and it's just so like it's almost like it started off more like all her founder led and then transitioned into like product and now she's like kind of faceless, like she doesn't do as much. Or she's removed herself from a lot of like content. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because the only post that I ever see pop up, and everyone's feed is so different, is like her explaining like the new features of each product and like her mentality and thought behind it, or where she may have pivoted and changed because of customer feedback. And I've seen her share a few times, like when something didn't sell as well as she thought it was, sometimes she'll go back and try to like reinforce, like, oh, but did you see this feature kind of thing? And sometimes, yeah, they just kind of like drop that one product. Um, but yeah, the only time I ever see her content is just, and maybe it's because I don't recognize the product without her because it's activewear, which is kind of everywhere. And so maybe I do see her content. I don't even know it when it's not her. But
Oh,
that was
that
kind of the first
yeah.
person that kind of came to mind when I'm thinking of like a business owner trying to talk about their product and why you should buy from them, and like connecting it to the founder with a product. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Sorry, real quick. One of the things I was thinking is I knew her more from tutorials and like doing videos. And then I know she had made some like posts around, I don't do that anymore because it's like the focus was so off. Like it was all about like persona of her, like people talking about her body. And so now it seems like she's still very involved, but less like now it's product based, which is cool. So thank you for sharing.
I love it.
I have a question. Jazz, this was really great and good thoughts for me as someone who is newer to the world of marketing, myself and my business. And something that I'm curious if you have thoughts on is like I'm transitioning. Like I've been a therapist for many years, a somatic trauma therapist, and now transitioning, still doing that, but really focusing on the building out the arm of somatic leadership coaching, where it's more B2B, right? Where I want to go inside organizations to do that work and do education. And somehow my brain is struggling with the shift of even though there's like parallels in the work, right? And I have deep experience in one space and speaking, to my client base, it was more like B2C. So something about shifting and being able to talk in the realm of B2B in a space that I'm adjacent to, but not currently in, is like somehow my brain is really fried around that. So I don't know if you have thoughts
Yeah,
around that.
no, it's a great question, and I love that your head is already in that space because it is going to be different. Because have you figured out yet, and it's okay if you haven't, have you figured out yet who your decision maker at these organizations is going to be? Because my gut is telling me that it may be different than the end user. Is that
That
fair to say?
So I'm still figuring that out. I was thinking so as well.
Mhm.
I've talked, I've kind of been in different meetings with folks and I've heard varied things, but right now I'm speaking more. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that it was different than
Yeah.
the end user.
If we were working together, my homework to you would be to just start having a ton of conversations and
Mhm.
just like really put your detective hat on and start talking to like HR people is maybe where I would start and really asking like thank you for being here. Really asking like what are those pain points that like you're experiencing that would make you think, okay, maybe I need to bring in someone like me. And then you can start to craft your marketing around those pain points. Because what I'm guessing for you, because I have some clients in similar spaces, is that it's going to be a situation where people are saying they need something that is maybe different than what they actually need, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so they may say, like, I'm fully making this up because I don't know your world, but they may say, like, we have a turnover problem and we think that like we have a problem with like our managers. And you can come in and say, well, okay, like I hear what you're saying and I want to validate that. But also, I would love to take you on this journey, on this path. Because with a lot of my clients that are in that like coaching and consulting realm,
Yeah.
usually the problem that their clients are identifying is just a little bit different than the problem they would tell you that they solve. So you have to do that detective work to figure out what language are my prospective clients, my ideal clients speaking, and how can I meet them where they're at.
Hmm.
I know that's a little bit of mental gymnastics, but genuinely, I think that's a really great place to start is just start having informational conversations with HR people. And when you're done with those conversations, after you've kind of shared where you're at, hey, I'm starting this business, I'm super excited about it, we're not pitching anything to them, ask them, who else do you think I should be talking to about this? And then they will lead you on this like magnificent journey. I've had so many clients do this where they will then introduce you to more people and more people who will then lead you to exactly who you need to be talking to. And I've seen it over and over again. Some really good business can come from just that simple question of like, thank you so much for your time. Who else should I be talking to? I'm trying to break into this world. I'm trying to talk to the right people.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Hmm. Yeah.
Blessing, may I pop in with another suggestion for you?
Oh,
By
sure.
the way, thank you so much, guys. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm also a coach and I've done versions of this.
Cool.
Um, I guess I'm intrigued. I would be intrigued to think about the journey from like a full-on sort of private practice all the way through to like now I sell to HR decision makers. And probably there's a thing in the middle, which you may have done already, which is basically do leadership work but just for executives, but they just pay for you themselves. And really, that's your existing work, but just under a different brand. And you may have had existing private practice clients who were executives and will just give you a testimony for like a leadership transformation website. I say this basically because I think HR professionals are sheep. And like the way I have got companies to pay for me as a coach is that I have done work one on one with someone and then they've said, hey, I've introduced you to HR, blah, blah, blah. Because you could spend a lot of time creating sales and marketing and content for like an HR person that you've never met. And actually, it would be way easier to just get your existing clients to introduce you to their HR people. Like I would try and solve this with human to human before I solve this with content or the internet or a sales funnel. Like Jazz said, her version of human to human was like, go, ask them who you should meet next. Like I would think of ways that your existing client base could get you to their HR people, rather than trying to go the like, I think a lot of digital marketing is a distraction until you already have a pretty solid business and then you use it to scale. But like just the person to person build
Yeah.
like the smaller fractal of the thing and then use the AI, use the LinkedIn to put fuel on. I don't know. It's just my take, but I have found that worked and it didn't require me kind of making content into the ether, which I also think is just a bit soul destroying, even if it would eventually work.
Thank you, Catherine. That is something to think about. It's a little harder from the therapy speak to add, like, but I think if I got some coaching clients, that might be easier under my own brand. Therapy is so regulated. I couldn't really ask that, but I think that in the coaching realm, there might be more space for that. But I
Yes.
appreciate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the clients I've had that used to be therapists all have this problem because you're going to this very regulated existence, this very unregulated
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
So yeah, playing with that will help. Anyway,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mhm.
Oh,
Oh,
Lucy on.
what a great discussion. Thank you all for jumping in and sharing more of what's going on in your world right now. Thank you so much for your time, Jazz. This was great. Um,
You.
we're going to shower you with affection in the chat here. There's so much that people have said is so great.
Thank you.
I just added here in the chat that your circle profile as well, so people can connect with you after. You can have feedback on the event, take a look at other events that are coming up. And if you're like, oh my gosh, this inspired me to also want to host an event, you can fill out our event hosting form, which is a little bit booked until the early summer, but so just thinking ahead for that. And yes, thanks again, and wishing you all a wonderful week. And we'll send out the recording soon.
Amazing. Thank you. I'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.